Good morning, students. I hope you all are fine with all your activities. Let us proceed with another aspect of our syllabus, and it is another topic number 3 related with the pollination. It is very simple, easy topic, and in various previous classes from your school, your junior college, you already studied about it. Let us start with present situation with reference to pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is the first stage of sexual reproduction in angiosperm, in which pollen grain transfer from where? From anther to stigma. So transformation of pollen grain is called as a pollination. Transfer of pollen grain from stamen to stigma is called as a pollination. This is a very simple process, and this process is the first stage of sexual reproduction, in which you will find that from such pollen grain anther, this is the part of the anther, if you are able to see in the screen. This is the individual stamen where you will find in the anther is present. Inside the anther, pollen sac is there, and where the pollen grains are there. So this pollen grain transfer to stigma of either same flower or located on the same plant but another flower, or transfer towards the another flower located on another plant. So this transformation of pollen grain is called as a pollination. It is a very important and essential process, and as I have told you that this transformation of pollen grain is taking place either on the same flower or the flower between or transformation taking place between two flowers located on same plant, or transformation is taking place between two different flowers located on two different plants. So on that basis, the pollination is divided into two types. The first type is called as a self-pollination. Self-pollination is a type of pollination in which pollen grain transfer within a tree or within a flower. It means that if pollen grain is transforming in a single flower or flower located on another side on the same plant, is called as a self-pollination. It means that another plant does not require for this pollination that takes place within a plant, and that's why it is called as a self-pollination. Then self-pollination is having two important types. The first one is autogamy. In this autogamy, you will find that pollination is taking place within a flower. Means no need to transfer the pollen grain to another flower. Just this pollen grain is transforming on this stigma. This type of self-pollination is called as a autogamy. The most common example of this one is mirabilis. Mirabilis, this is the most common plant, Guliabas, Gulbakshi, or 4 o'clock plant. It is very commonly available everywhere. So this is the first type, remember. Second type is that one, the pollen grain is transforming on the stigma but located on another flower, and that flower is present on the same plant. Means pollen grain is transforming between two flowers, and that both the flowers that are located on the same plant. This type of pollination is called as a geitonogamy. Geitonogamy is a second important type of pollination. The most common example of this geitonogamy is maize, makai. In that one, the pollination takes place. Then second type is that is a cross-pollination. If pollen grain is transforming between two plants from one flower, the pollen grain transferred to another flower, but that flower is located on another plant. It is called as a cross-pollination. Excuse me for 1 minute. Yes? This one is called as a cross-pollination. This cross-pollination is most commonly present in our atmosphere. No, not atmosphere. So this cross-pollination is also having two important types. If this pollen grain is transforming from one plant to another plant, but belongs to same species, species is the same one. So at that time, it is called as a xenogamy. Hence, this is taking place between two similar species. This example is very common, that is China rose, papaya, and many other plants. And while we'll find that pollen grain is transforming from one plant to another plant or one flower to another flower, but flower is different. So this type of cross-pollination is called as a hybridization. Remember, mostly it takes place accidentally. While birds, insects carrying that pollen grain that falls accidentally on some other flower on the way. And if they fertilize, so that is called as a hybridization. Normally, that the variety is different, but the species is same. At that time, such type of pollination takes place. For example, the China rose is having number of species. In that one, if it is transforming from one species to another species, then it is hybridization. We are having a lot of varieties of Jasminum, Chambeli. In that one also it takes place. We are having a lot of variety of what you can say that rose. In that one also it takes place. So in this way, the types of pollination takes place. Followed, self-pollination, cross-pollination. Self-pollination is having two important types, autogamy and geitonogamy, while cross-pollination is having two types, xenogamy and hybridization. You are supposed to remember. Now, the question arises, why this self-pollination takes place or why cross-pollination takes place? So, whatever the type of pollination is taking place in a particular plant, it is due to particular creation by the nature, and that is called as a adaptation, or it is called as a contrivances, or it is also called as a strategies. Now first we'll discuss about the strategies or contrivances of self-pollination. Why self-pollination is taking place? The first one is bisexuality. Bisexuality is a phenomena in which a flower contains both androecium and gynoecium, and both these mature at the same time. So ultimately, no need to transfer towards the other side. So this type of pollination, this type of particular strategy is called as a bisexuality. And this you will find in many plant species like Mirabilis. I have given the example, 4 o'clock plant, as well as in many other plants. Second one is, that is a Clistogamous, Clistogamy, Clistogamy. It is a Clisto means close, Game means gametes. It is a condition in which both the reproductive organs are present in close condition. Normally in such type of plants, the flowers that are open in our lower side, mostly inside the soil, or in some cases it is in upper side, like argimone. But the flowers are unable to open. So ultimately, there is no any other way except self-pollination. So this condition, this strategy, this contrivancy, this mode of nature is called as a Clistogamy. The most common example of this one is oxalis, then portulaca, and in some other flowering plants, it also takes place. These are the two strategies for self-pollination. Then come towards the cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is having 4 important strategies. That's why the pollen grain transfer from one place to another place. The first one is unisexuality. Many flowers, they are having unisexual condition. Only one reproductive organ is present on a one flower. Either androecium is present or either gynoecium is present. Ultimately, then what will happen? The transformation takes place between two flowers that are located on two different plants. So ultimately, cross-pollination takes place. This is the first strategy. The most common example of this one is papaya, coriander, dhania, and many other plants where you will find that the cross-pollination takes place because only one reproductive organ is present in that particular. It is also called as a declining. Unisexuality is also called as a declining. Then other one is that is a dichogamy, D-I-C-H-O-G-A-M-Y. Dichogamy, it is a condition of bisexual flower in which maturation period of reproductive organ is different. In some cases, first androecium matures. In some cases, first gynoecium is mature. So what will happen? Ultimately, the pollen grain moves to another plant, another flower located on another plant. So this condition is called as a dichogamy. If suppose in a flower, androecium matures first, then this condition is called as a protoandry, P-R-O-T-A-N-D-R-Y. Protoandry is a condition in which the first androecium matures. When androecium matures, then it transfers pollen grain to another plant, another flower, and ultimately cross-pollination takes place. The most common example of this one is sunflower and China rose. Second one is, in some flowers, gynoecium matures first. So it is called as a protogyny. What happens in a flower? The gynoecium matures first. Ultimately, that gynoecium is supposed to receive pollen grain. So it receives pollen grain from another flower located on another flower plant. Ultimately, cross-pollination takes place. So this particular condition is called as a protogyny. The most common example of this one is anona, means custard apple, means sitafal, means sharifa. Another example is people. Another example is banyan, bird, or wort. This is the second strategy. First was unisexuality. Second one was dichogamy. Then third strategy is heterostyly. In this condition, what's happened? The length of reproductive organ is not suitable. They are having a different length of styles. So ultimately, they are unable to transfer their pollen grains on a same flower. So ultimately, they are supposed to transfer our pollen grain, migrate from one plant to another plant where the style is having the same and maturation period is also the same. So this one is called as a heterostyly. Jasmine is the most common example, chameli. Primula is the another example of this one. And then the last strategy is self-sterility. Means it is a condition that in which the flowers are unable to self-fertile themselves with the help of their own reproductive organs. So what will happen? Androecium is also present, gynoecium is also present. But astigma is unable to fertile with the same pollen. So ultimately it required another pollen grain from the another side. So ultimately cross-pollination takes place. The pollen grain, the stamens, they are having either staminate condition, maturation period is different, or the length is different, or number of things are related with that one. So ultimately, even though flower is bisexual but unable to fertile on the same flower, so cross-pollination takes place. The most common example of this one is tobacco, tambaku, passion flower, Krishna Kamal is the common example of this one. So this is about the first part of the pollination, that is the definition of pollination. Then the types of pollination, self-pollination types, cross-pollination types, then strategies or contrivances or adaptations for self-pollination as well as cross-pollination. So you are supposed to remember all this aspect with reference to their examples. Then the second aspect is that agencies of the pollination and advantages and disadvantages of either self-pollination and cross-pollination. So at present, we'll stop here and then we'll continue it with this particular one in next class. Till then, you are supposed to be careful about yourself. Remember, at home, prepare for your examination, because from today, there is only 1 month is left. Next 26th is the examination day. Be careful about it. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye. Allah Hafiz. We'll stop.